friends, how's it going? Julie here. Welcome to the Julie's Paint Party YouTube channel, where I love to teach you how to paint without breaking the bank. I just use very simple supplies straight from the dollar store to make beautiful paintings, and I love sharing painting and teaching my friends how to paint. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today. As you can see on my screen, I have a black canvas. So you need to paint your canvas first before we get started. So if you need to do a little pause, get some black paints out and just paint out your canvas, or maybe you're fancy and you already have a black canvas available to paint today. My intention is to teach you how to do a fun little galaxy scene on our black canvas. And for that, we need a few different tools today. So I usually have my holy trifecta of brushes, which is my 3/4 inch Fatty McFadderson flathead brush. I usually have my 1/2 inch flathead brush, which it's always here. It's always on hand if I need it. I have my long liner brush, and those are the 3 brushes I use the most in my painting. But today, because we're getting all magical with our galaxies and whatnot, I have my childlike bristly brush. So any brush that has kind of like bristles on top, I totally got this from the dollar store in like the art department, but anything that has like those hairy bristles on it will do a great job. And I also have an old toothbrush that I'm going to use to splatter some stars on my canvas, but you can also just use your regular paintbrushes and do some splattery stuff like this as well. I love the toothbrush though. So if you can just like grab an old toothbrush, that would be the best. As far as paints are concerned, besides black, because you need to do this black, we are going to put some trees on it as well. So black trees. I want you to pick like 4 or 5 colors that you totally love that are bright and fun. So here I have a little bit of orange and yellow. I have my pink and turquoise, and I have a nice dark blue as well. So the dark blue is going to be essential for sure. So make sure you grab dark blue and then 4 colors that you just like totally love. We need black for the background and we need white for the stars. So pick 4 like super colorful, even 5. Honestly, you could choose as many as you want. 3, 4, 5, whatever. Grab your favorite, most brightest colors, and when we get back, we'll get started on the background. Yay! Okay, so I'm using an 11 by 14 canvas today, and it's an old canvas. I actually even have a rip in it. As you can see, I have a little rippy down here, and I taped it up with some tape on the back. But this is, you know, just an example. Like, you don't have to have amazing supplies to, like, especially when we're practicing learning how to paint. You could use watercolor paper. You can use any size canvas that you want. It could even be smaller than this. It could be bigger. It's all going to work out the same. It's all good. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put some blue on my plate. And we're going to get this like bluey haziness in the background before we put any stars on. And you can do this 2 different ways. You can grab your childlike bristly brush, tap it in your blue, and just start. This is actually really good practice for when we put our galaxies on. But what I like to do is I like to rifle around the blue, and I move it until it doesn't really move anymore. I grab some more, and I make tiny little spins or even big spins, and it's kind of making like a big nebula cloud in the background. If you don't want to do that, you want to make things a little bit quicker, you can always take your big brush and just get in there and paint some blue all over your canvas. Now, we don't want to fill up the whole canvas, and that's what I like using about the bristly brush. Like, you could do the same and make some twirlies with your big brush as well. If you don't have the bristly brush, you can totally do this with a regular brush. But I like how my bristly brush works when I get to these edges. So I want it to be very cloudy. And you know, clouds, they come in all different shapes and sizes, but there's lots of like bumps and little peaks and valleys in our clouds, and that's how I want to put it onto my canvas. So I'm still going to have some spots where you can see just the black in the background, but I want to have like this little, some kind of haziness around the edges. And just to let you know, like, I'm not being light about this. Like, I can actually feel it in my muscles and in my arm. So I'm putting a decent amount of pressure because I really want to move that paint around. I don't want it to be all goobery on the top of my canvas. I want it to be nice and thin. And I also want to bring it down. So we are going to have like a line of trees at the bottom of our canvas here. So if you want to bring the blue all the way down to the bottom here, that's cool. But when it's up at the top, I want you to leave some like little divots and creases where there's still some black kind of shining out from the background here. Now the blue is going to dry on top of this black, and it's not going to look as blue as it looks right now. It's going to start to dry, and it's going to look a little bit more kind of like a gray style blue, and that's totally cool. It does not have to look bright by any means, but I think that's good. I'm gonna leave it here. So whenever you're done filling up your canvas, take a little arm break and put some white on your palette. And once that's on there, we are gonna make a whole galaxy full of stars in the background. Okay, so I'm gonna grab some white. Don't need a whole lot, just a little bit, just a little bit. And I have my toothbrush, and I'm gonna load up my toothbrush with white paint. Now, make sure. So there's a couple ways. Before I do the toothbrush way, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna show you. So if you don't have a toothbrush and you want great splattery stars on your canvas, just be aware that you will get paint on you. So make sure you have an apron or something covering up your clothes, or you don't care about the clothes at all, because it will happen where you get paint. So what you want to do, and I'm going to do this I'm only doing this once because I don't want to get paint all over myself too much anyways. I have my big brush, and I'm just going to take a tiny bit of water and add it to my white. So just a couple drops. Now, I don't want it to be too wet, and I don't want it to be too dry. And I know that's ridiculous, but if you start with a little paint on your brush, you can always add more if it's not enough. If it's too much, you're gonna get big gloobers of paint everywhere. So what I do is I'll grab just a dry brush and hold it in my hand like this with my fist. So I'm right-handed, this is my left hand. I have my right hand here, and I will gently start to tap little splatters everywhere. Be gentle. It's really easy to put big splatters of paint on your canvas, so tap light to start. If you get a big splatter right off the bat, you have way too much water on your brush. If it's not getting anywhere, you need to add a little water to your brush, okay? But that's it. Bang like this, and you'll feel it splatter in your face, and it's super great. What I like to do, keep things a little cleaner, at least off my clothes anyways. I'm gonna put a tiny little bit of water on my brush, just a little bit. And I fill my brush like I'm brushing my teeth. So I put a little bit of white on my brush, and I actually bring it to the side of my plate, and I brush it like a toothbrush, because it is one. And that way there I know that there's not so much paint on my toothbrush that it's also gonna goober everywhere. I will point directly at my canvas. I take my finger and I pull back on the bristles. So pulling back. Now I don't do this over top because often I'll get lots of drips when that happens. So I like to do it straight ahead like this. Okay. And I'm pulling backwards and it's flinging forward. So I have a lot of people who have issues with this that don't understand the concept. If you need to hold the brush in one hand and do it like this, that's cool too, but we're petting backwards. We're not petting forwards. If you pet this way, you're gonna get it all over yourself, okay? And basically, I'm filling up this whole thing. I want it to look so magical and so starry filled. I'm tapping my brush on my napkin every once in a while because I can see that there's water in there and it's gonna run. So I'm just keeping it chill. And like I said, I want it really, really full of lots of stars. So it's really up to you how many stars you want to see on your canvas. Now, if you want to get technical about it, you can get into some places and like do like little star clusters, like make a little Milky Way back there. But we are going to be painting over top of these stars. So just keep that in mind when you're really getting into it. Okay, that's super duper starry. Okay, I think, whoa, look at that. That's just like, it's already done. We're already in the galaxy. So good. Now, the result of using a toothbrush is that you get white on your hands. So wipe it off or go to the bathroom and wash your hands if you need to. When we come back, we are going to start to we're going to use our childlike brush again. So get that nice and dried off and cleaned up. And we're going to start to put our, I want to say they're like nebulas. They're like nebulas on our canvas, okay? Sound good? All right. Okay, so we are going to use our bristly brush, just like we did in the background here where we pushed and made tiny little circles. And honestly, this is truly a choose your own adventure style painting. So you don't have to follow exactly where I'm following. And it's really a matter of like, just feel those colors out with your heart. I know people hate when I say that, but it's true. We can keep adding forever. This is a painting that you can work on forever. So you have to be a little bit mindful. I'm just gonna get a little bit of each color on there. So I have some yellow. My plate looks so white on the screen. I'm not sure why. A little orange, and you just need a very little bit of each color. I'm gonna put the turquoise right here, a little turquoise, and a little pink. And we'll see where that'll take us. So I still have, if you can see there, still have my white and blue on there and turquoise, and you know, you can get fancy, you can mix colors together, you can do all sorts of different stuff. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with like a nice colorful cloud down at the bottom. I think I'm going to use some pink. So I like to put on my paint just a little bit at a time for this. If you really take big scoops, then it's hard to get that effect where it feels like a cloudiness because we have too much paint on our paintbrush. So when I grab my paint, I'll dip it in and then I tap it on my palette a few times and rub it in there. And with that, I'll bring it to my canvas and I'm just going to start right in the middle down at the bottom. This is really good practice. So I'm going to start to just rifle little circles. You can go forward circles or backward circles. Doesn't matter, whatever you're good at, whatever feels best. And I'm just going to start to create fun little clouds. And like I said before, when it comes to clouds, they're not perfectly circular. They're kind of like, they're puffy and round, and there's big pieces that come up and out and down. There are lots of peaks and valleys, okay? So I like to try and keep it a little interesting. And because we are going to be putting some trees, like a forest down at the bottom, I want you to make sure you bring your colors up at least a few inches so that we can really see those trees on top. If you don't have any color in the black areas or even in the blue areas, it can get a little lost, like your trees get a little lost in the mix. So we're gonna fill all that in. And this is a good start. So I'm just using pink right now. And down in the corners are great spots to practice first if you want to add different colors or practice mixing colors together. So what you can do is you can grab a little yellow and just see how the yellow, I should have tapped that a few more times first. See how the yellow shows up and how it mixes with the pink. You can do it with the turquoise. See how the turquoise shows up and mixes with the pink and yellow. Hey, and you get these, look how it's really pretty, right? It's really pretty. And you can truly use any of your colors and mix any of your colors. Now, just be mindful of what colors you're going to decide to mix together, because you don't want to learn the hard way. Well, I swear sometimes it's better if you learn the hard way, because then you really remember. But like if I put the turquoise and orange together, it's going to make like a brown color, and I don't really want a brown nebula. I want my nebula to look really bright and kind of neon, wildness. So I'm just going to wait to put any orange on my plate or on my painting until I'm really ready for it. Now I know that pink and orange and yellow go really good together, and pink and turquoise and yellow go really well together, but all of them don't really mix super duper well. So with that said, once you get a little bit of a vibe with a nice little cloud down at the bottom, we can start to bring up our clouds. So I'm going to use my pink, and I'm going to start to make some little swirlies up towards the top here. And I'm just following my heart, guys. I'm like mixing the colors out at random. And I'm going to make it look like there's kind of like a little rip in the universe here. So I'm going to bring my clouds up into almost like a V shape. And I'm going to start to add a little bit of orange up at the top here. And just notice how I'm just taking little bits of color at a time, little tiny bits of color, okay? And just doing a couple little swirls here and there. I don't have to overdo it. I don't feel like I have to prove anything or like add big wads of color all at once. There's lots of opportunity to just add a little bit of color here and there. And ooh, let's see. And basically, you know, when I'm making my little swirls, I'm moving around my paint until it doesn't really move anymore, like I said. So I'm not leaving really any big globs of paint or any big goobers. I'm just letting it be. Looks pretty cool. Now what you might find is the more you layer on top of each other, the more the colors are going to show up a little better. So if you have some pink and it gets lost, so I have a little pink down here, if I wanted to look a little brighter, I can grab a little extra pink, and if I put that on top, it's going to brighten that pink up a little bit. Same with the yellow and the turquoise, whatever, you know, whatever you kind of compound on shows up a little better in the end. And I'm out of pink, so I'm just gonna keep using the colors that I have on my palettes and go with that. Then I'm not wasting. All right, I think that's good. I think I'm okay with this. Maybe just a little more turquoise up here. Like I said, you could legit just work on this forever. Maybe I'll just bring that back around over here. Now, obviously, you could fill the whole canvas up with your paint here, and it would look amazing, and you can totally do that if you want to. But what I'm really going for is I want to see that cloudiness, that beautiful kind of psychedelic cloudness, and I still want to see that blue in the background, and I still want to see the black around my edges. So it really shows that, like, it's in space. That's what we're going for right now, okay? So it looks like it's in space. It's good. Now, once you have a bunch of colors up at the top, like I said, we're going to build a forest down here. So it's going to all look like it's in the night sky eventually. So what I want you to do is make sure you have a decent amount of color down at the bottom here. Bring up a few little clouds. You can even bring in clouds from the top and down if you want as well. And when you feel like you're complete, let it dry for a minute. And then when we come back, we're going to add some pine trees on top. Okay, amazing. Now, like I said, we're going to put some trees on, and I am going to get some black on my canvas, on my palette, to do that. And I'll give you my tree speech. So I have taught thousands of people how to paint trees, and I teach it the same way every single time. And nobody's trees look like mine, and nobody's trees ever look the same. The one key factor in that is that in the end, everybody's trees look like trees. So everybody's truly got their own tree style. So it's important that through the process of it, you kind of try and embrace and find your own tree style that's going to work for you. I'm going to show you how I do it, but I just want you to know that there's lots of different ways to make trees, and they're all perfect in their own way, okay? All right, so I'm going to use my big fat Fatty McFadderson brush. Fatty McFadderson works fantastic if your bristles can be smooshed together. So if you can take your fingers after it being a little bit damp and smoosh your bristles together, and it's nice and tight at the top of your brush. When you look at it from the top, it's really thin and nice. That's a great brush to make a tree. If you can't do it with that one, grab a smaller brush. Grab your smaller flathead brush. Same deal. If you can smoosh the bristles together and put it together like that, fantastic. That works really well too, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna start by, I'm just grabbing a little bit of water just so that I know that my bristles are gonna move smoothly along the canvas. And when I load up my brush, I'm gonna keep my bristles together by taking my brush and pulling away from my black paint. So I'm filling my brush, but I'm keeping my brushes smooth against the surface of my palette to make sure that when I bring my brush to the canvas, my bristles are all gonna stay the same, okay? Now, I'm gonna fill this all up with trees, so you can do it one of two ways. You can do one tree at a time, or you can put a bunch of tree trunks on there and then go from there. I'm neither here nor there, but I'm gonna do the tree trunk first way just to show you kind of the shape of the forest that I'm gonna make. So, flatten my brush out, get my paintbrush nice and loaded up. Now, when I am putting my tree trunk on the canvas, my brush is straight and flat right at the bottom, okay? As I pull my brush upwards, up, I don't stop at the top, I stop at the bottom. So I keep pulling and I fling up and off the canvas. So that last bristle there, that's the last thing to touch my canvas, and it makes a nice little point at the top. Okay, so let's do it again. Flat, flat, flat. I'm gonna put my brush down at the bottom. Actually, I'm gonna extend this a little bit more. I just want it to be a little higher over here. If you need to make a shoop sound, do it. I'm gonna flatten it out. Put my brush straight on the canvas, and I'm gonna pull up, 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 up. And as I get to the top, I'm gonna fling up and off. So I'm swinging, swing upwards off the canvas, okay? Flat, flat, flat. I'm gonna make one more here. Swing off the canvas. And I'm gonna do the same over here. So starting at the bottom, swing, swing, and a swing. Okay, so how I'm doing this, I'm making bigger trees at the side and they're kind of coming down towards the center. All right, now to make the trees, I'm gonna go back to my black. I'm gonna smoosh out my bristles and just using the very, very little tiny corner of my brush, just the little corner right up at the top. I'm just tapping really, really gently with the corner of my brush. So tap, 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 tap. And I'm kind of moving back and forth. And the further down I get, I start to push a little harder. And I start to use more of my brush. Now, for trees, you can have you can have the branches popping upwards like this. So every time I kind of go to the other side, I'm kind of making a little V or U upwards like this. See how that's coming together? Okay. I'll do that for this tree. So this tree, I'll show you a bunch of different trees, okay? So I'm gonna pop up and I'm gonna make U's, and as I reach the bottom, I'm gonna really start to push nice and hard with my brush. And my bristles start to separate on my brush, and I get these really cool, what looks like tree boughs on there, all right? So again, I'm gonna flatten my brush out in my paint. I'm gonna grab some paint, flatten it out. I'm gonna go to the very top, and I'm gonna use just the corner to start. Just a little tap back and forth, just using the corner of my brush. Just tap, 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 to the left, to the right, almost kind of like a zigzag pattern, okay? Now, as I get further down my tree, I'm gonna start to tap a little harder. And the harder I tap, the more my bristles separate. So the more it looks like a tree. Now, depending on your brush, so my brush is kind of curved like a downward U, so at first it's okay, but I can flip my brush around. And this time, I'm just gonna go straight. So I'm going straight back and forth. I'm not twisting my brush upwards. I'm just gonna go back and forth, back and forth. And the further I get down, the wider my tree gets, all the way down to the bottom of my canvas. Now I can see some of my trunk in there, so I'm just gonna pop a little bit of black over top of that. But ta-da! So these tree branches are kind of a little bit more straight. These ones are a little bit more U-y. And then I'm gonna flatten my brush out one more time. Flat, flat, flat. And again, I'm gonna start back at the top of my canvas here, and just using the little corner of my brush, I'm gonna tap back and forth. And the more I tap, I start to kind of zigzag down. I tap a little harder. I make my branches a little wider. And instead of going straight back and forth, now I can do an upside down U. So you can also make your tree branches follow more of a downward trajectory. Let's put it straight here so you see. And the more I push, the more my bristles separate. And obviously if you need more paint, grab more paint. That's it. So this could easily all be filled in with black paint, and that would be fine. But I love leaving little empty areas together so you can still see some of the remnants of some of those colors popping through. You see how you can still see a little bit of the turquoise back there? I love seeing that. So I'm just gonna leave that be. And I'm gonna go over to the other side of my canvas and do the exact same thing. Now, the more trees you make, the more paint gets in your brush. And the more you use your brush, the more gnarly your brush gets. So check this out. After 3 trees, my bristles are all separated and there's a bunch of paint in there. So it makes it harder every time for those bristles to get smooshed back together for the top of the trees. So after a few trees, it's nice to just give your brush a good rinse, get it freshened up a little bit. I have a saying that if you want your brush to work for you, you have to work for your brush. So you can't always expect your brush to just work. You have to make sure that it's going to work for you. So rinsing out the excess paint, taking the time to make sure your bristles are all nice and put together, that really counts for the results of your painting. So just keep that in mind. Just gonna continue. I'm gonna go back to my paint palette and I'm gonna load up my brush again, really load up the black paint and pet my brush in the paint there. Start at the top with tiny, tiny little doops, doo-doo-doos, just little taps. And honestly, the more you get used to it, the faster it gets. You just kind of get used to rifling your brush back and forth. And you can really start to have fun with it because trees aren't all exactly triangle all the time. Sometimes there's missing boughs. Sometimes they're a little leany. Another one of my key sayings is trees are like people. Some are tall, some are short, some are wide, some are a little broken, but we're all beautiful in our own way. So with that said, I'm just gonna make this one a little taller. Now, for example, actually I'll work on this one so you can see it a little better, but you know, I'll start at the top with just like a little tappy taps, right? And you start to get into it, but I can really like bring some parts out a little further, you know, have a couple little empty spots and really make my trees look really unique as well. So, you know, it obviously, it looks like a big zigzag, and you can always add more if you want to, but it's the point that like, even this, like I could bring a big branch that kind of pops all the way out from the bottom. Nobody's gonna know any different. They don't have to be perfectly even on each side. But the method is always the same. Now, everybody's gonna have a little bit of a different style brush, or, you know, and it's funny because I obviously, we're using dollar store supplies for my tutorials, and that often results like they're not breaking the bank. They you know, they can be a little bit on the cheaper side. As long as you take care of them, they can last a long time. But there's certain styles of brushes and certain just like that aren't as of quality. So I always compare it to Bob Ross. Whenever he made trees, he always had a sweet fan brush to make all of his trees, and in theory it makes perfect sense, but he was obviously using a really great high quality fan brush. And I find the ones that you get from the dollar store, they're just a little flimsy, and when you have a nice, even though these don't have the fan to make your little bristles and stuff, your flathead brush is so versatile. It can really do the job, and it just has more girth. Like it has more substance to it to handle that strong tapping that we're putting on our canvas. All right, so check it out. I got a little forest over here. I got a little forest over here, and I'm just gonna keep kind of working my way down my forest. Now, you can also be really strategic and have fun with your forest as well. So not all the trees, like even if they're going down a hill, doesn't mean they're all perfectly gonna go down the hill. You might have some trees that get a little bigger, you know, get a little taller before the fall down the cliff. And because we're using silhouetted trees, it's okay that they overlap. You're gonna lose some areas of your trees, and that's okay. The key is to still continue to see some of those beautiful colors poking out of the background. Okay, so now I'm gonna work these trees down and over the hill. They're gonna start falling off the cliff here. And as they get smaller, you can totally use a smaller brush. Like if my trees start to get a little smaller, using my smaller flathead brush will do the trick. So flatten that out. But same deal, little taps at the top. And pop down along the way. And forests aren't always filled with pine trees. You might have a nice cedar tree just popping up out of nowhere, right? You can have some random branches popping up. And you can really fill things in until your little heart is content. Ta-da! How cool is that? Now you have a beautiful galaxy sitting in the forest, looking up at all of that magic. How wonderful. And that's such a great part about painting, is that we can just insert ourselves into these scenarios and get lost in the process. There's a lot of magic in the world, friends, and sometimes it's hard to see it when we're getting rifled with all sorts of stuff. So painting time is just so wonderful to really connect with yourself and just know that what you feel, what you want, and that what you do truly matters. And you are here to make an impact on the world exactly who you are. So try not to let too many people influence that. Find the magic in you. You have it. I know it. And with that, whenever you're done putting all that magic on the canvas, you can grab a liner brush. I think I'm going to use, I was going to use pink, but I used all my pink. I'm just going to grab a little yellow. And I'm going to put my signature on it. I just like to put my little initials. And you should too, because you should be really proud that you got through a complete painting. All right? Now, just remember, if you want to hang out with your friends and paint with me anytime, you can go to my website, juliespaintparty.com/book now, and you can book your very own personal private paint party. And you can invite as many friends as you want, up to 100 people all over the world, to meet online, and we can all paint together, okay? If that is an option, I love it. You can do team building, friendship rekindling, family reunions, whatever you want. But if you are looking to deep dive a little bit further into your painting, I highly suggest checking out the Julie's Paint Party membership hub. There are over 250 more painting tutorials waiting for you. Just check out juliespaintparty.com/JPPVM, and that'll give you all the information you need. And that is all, my friend. Have a super sweet, magical week, and I'll see you next time. Bye.